5 Stoic rules for handling criticism. Without losing your peace, most people think criticism is the problem. It isn't. The problem is what happens inside you the moment criticism arrives. The tightening in your chest, the instant urge to defend yourself. The way one sentence from one person can hijack your entire day. That is not the criticism controlling you. That is you handing your peace over willingly and calling it a reaction. Stoics understood something most people spend their whole lives missing. Criticism is not an attack on who you are. It is information arriving in an uncomfortable package. And how you receive it determines everything: your growth, your relationships, your mental freedom. Here are 5 Stoic rules for handling criticism without losing your peace. Rule 1, separate the person from the point. The moment someone criticizes you, your brain does something automatic. It evaluates the source before it evaluates the message. If you don't respect the person, you reject the point. If you feel threatened by them, you go defensive. You stop listening to what was said and start building a case against who said it. Stoics trained themselves to do the opposite. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to extract value from any source, regardless of how it was delivered or who delivered it, because truth does not require a respectable messenger. A difficult colleague might say something accurate. A jealous person might accidentally point at a real weakness. An enemy who criticizes you harshly might be the only one honest enough to say what your friends quietly think. Ask yourself one question when criticism hits. Is there anything true here? Not is this person kind? Not did they say it well? Not do I even like them? Just, is any part of this true? That question alone will save you years of defensiveness. Rule 2. Your reaction reveals more than their words. Think about the last time someone criticized you. Really sit with it. Did you go quiet and cold? Did you snap back instantly? Did you replay it for hours, rehearsing what you should have said? Your reaction is data about you, not them. Epictetus taught that nothing outside you has the power to disturb you unless you grant it that power. When criticism triggers a disproportionate response, it is almost always because it touched something you already believe about yourself, something unresolved, a fear you haven't faced, an insecurity you haven't examined. The criticism didn't create the wound. It revealed one that was already there. Stoics didn't try to suppress that reaction. They got curious about it. Why does this particular thing bother me this much? What does my response say about where I still need to grow? That shift from defending yourself to examining yourself is where real strength begins. Anyone can fight back. It takes genuine discipline to pause, breathe, and ask what your reaction is actually telling you. Rule 3. You don't owe everyone a response. This one will quietly change your life. Most people operate as though every criticism requires an answer. Someone says something about you, and you feel the pull immediately to explain yourself, to correct them, to make them understand, as if your peace depends on their approval, as if leaving their opinion unanswered means they won. Stoics rejected this completely. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have no obligation to respond to every provocation. Silence is not weakness. Silence is often the highest form of self-control available. When you stop trying to manage what everyone thinks about you, you reclaim enormous amounts of mental energy that was being wasted on an impossible task. You cannot control what people say about you. You cannot make someone respect you by arguing them into it. You cannot force understanding from someone who has already decided how they see you. What you can control is your own response. And sometimes the most powerful response is none at all. Let the criticism exist. Let the person hold their opinion. Your peace does not require their correction. Rule 4. Distinguish criticism from cruelty. Not all criticism is equal, and Stoicism does not ask you to absorb everything without discernment. There is a real difference between feedback that is hard to hear and cruelty disguised as honesty. Useful criticism, even when it stings, points at something specific and actionable. It comes from someone who has standing to speak on the subject. It contains something you can actually do with. Cruelty is different. Cruelty attacks your character, your worth, your identity. It comes from insecurity, jealousy, or the desire to diminish you. It has no actionable content because its purpose was never to help you grow. Its purpose was to make the other person feel larger by making you feel smaller. Seneca understood this distinction. He taught that wisdom means knowing which voices deserve your attention and which deserve only your indifference. When someone criticizes you, ask honestly, is this pointing at something I can work with, or is this about them? One deserves your reflection. The other deserves your detachment. Giving both the same weight is not humility. It is a failure of discernment. Protect your mind. Not everything said about you is worth carrying. Rule 5. Let your growth be your answer. The most common mistake people make after receiving criticism is trying to immediately prove the critic wrong. Through words, through arguments, through anxiously explaining themselves, Stoics took a different path entirely. They let their actions respond quietly over time, without announcement. Because here's what actually happens when you receive criticism honestly and use it as fuel. You grow. You change. You develop in directions the criticism pointed at, whether it was kindly delivered or not. And that growth becomes visible without you ever having to defend yourself against the original accusation. The person who was told they weren't disciplined enough and quietly built discipline. Their life answers. The person who was told they weren't capable and silently developed capability. Their results answer. No argument required. No performance of self-improvement for an audience. Just the steady, patient, unglamorous work of actually becoming better. Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. Stop arguing about whether the criticism was fair. Stop rehearsing your rebuttal. Stop waiting for the person who doubted you to admit they were wrong. Use it. Let the version of you that exists in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years, be the only response that was ever necessary. Criticism will always arrive. That is simply the cost of living a visible life, making decisions, having opinions, taking action. Being present in the world means people will have things to say. But your peace is not at the mercy of what they say. It never was. The Stoics didn't build unshakable inner lives by avoiding criticism. They built them by changing their relationship with it entirely, by seeing it clearly, learning from it honestly, and refusing to let it become the thing that controlled them. 5 rules, 1 outcome. Peace that doesn't depend on anyone's approval.